Welcome to Chats with Changemakers, the Northeast podcast for people making the world a better place. Hello and welcome to Chats with Changemakers. I'm your host, Kate Duffy, and in this episode, I've been talking to Paul Kirkpatrick from Off the Grid Adventures CIC. So Paul set up this social enterprise back in 2016 to bring people together through adventure and learning in order to improve emotional and physical well-being, as well as increase volunteering and training opportunities. Now, the clue is in the title for this organisation. Paul and his team are all about following their passion, their creativity, and ultimately having adventures. Here's my interview with Paul. Hi everyone, and this week I'm talking to Paul Kirkpatrick from Off the Grid Adventures CIC. So welcome, Paul.
Morning, how are we all doing?
All good, very good. So Paul, tell us a little bit about your social enterprise.
So Off the Grid Adventures it's been a journey, I guess, over the last 10 years, perhaps, before we even set up. I spent many years working in social care, youth offending, working with vulnerable under 18s predominantly. And sort of mid-2012, I guess, things started to change a little. Community interest companies were launched. I was very interested in how do we develop a community interest company and do things a little different, because within local authority, you're restricted in ways on what you can do, the areas you can work in. And community interest companies kind of caught my imagination a little, because I wanted to create a Northeast project to take the best bits of learning from social care, from youth offending, from development and the third sector, and kind of bring them all together to create a new service. It was quite a bold idea I had in my mind. And within the local authority world, there's a lot of people will know there's been a number of restructures, and offending behaviour was significantly dropping. And sort of the team I was managing at the time, it was going through a number of changes, of which I wasn't really best placed to lead the next stage. So I thought it was kind of the perfect opportunity, sort of 2016, to launch Off the Grid. The title came about many years ago when I was working with some of the more vulnerable groups. Behaviour was an issue, and we'd been up in the Lake District with a particular group. I was just helping, but the group were a little on the wilder side, if I was very polite. Mm-hmm. And a built-up area like Keswick was not the most appropriate group. It was not the most appropriate group to be in a place like that. Mm-hmm. We needed to be off the grid. We needed to be in the middle of nowhere for this particular group to push their boundaries, to explore who they were and such forth. We were asked to leave Keswick by the police.
Oh, man.
So it was quite the title. Yeah, the title brings a big smile to my face every time I kind of tell this story, because it was quite a funny incident in a way, but we were asked to leave so that nothing went further. And I kind of like Off the Grid idea, and we ended up taking on a lease of a property up in the Kidland Forest, which is sort of up near Rothbury Way for anyone that doesn't know the forest particularly well. Mm-hmm. But 6 miles into the forest was where this place was, and it was just amazing.
Wow.
It was just a brilliant location, and there was nothing up there but wildlife and trees, and the trees don't fool the police, and the wildlife just take off and go somewhere quieter away from us. Yeah. So we could take all the groups up there. We could work through a lot of things, and they could still have the experiences that they'd never really had, and learn the skills they needed really to exist in more urban areas.
Interesting. So have you purchased that property?
We had it on a 5-year lease initially.
Nice.
That property did end up going back to Forestry Commission, but there was a number of things that we learned from that. A lot of I think a lot of people that run social enterprise have learned by mistakes they've made or experiences they've had.
Mhm.
It's the best way of learning. And when we were up there, one of the more interesting things that had happened to us was there was a big storm one night. A
Mhm.
couple of trees had came down, and we were on the wrong side of the path where the trees had blocked.
Oh, crikey.
Um, so, we managed to get the trees out of the way, but it was like, really, we're going to need to get a chainsaw. And I
Mhm.
wasn't keen on getting a saw without going and getting certificate insurance and some
Mhm.
clothing. I knew enough that you didn't just go buy a saw and start chopping down
Yes.
fallen trees.
Yeah.
Um, and again, total sort of tangent. I went qualified. I had the chainsaw, and we did have a number of other funny situations where trees had fell over, and I had to use the saw to clear our way out. And then, really randomly, Yellow Pages had gotten a list of people who were qualified. And I ended up in this really interesting conversation with Yellow Pages around the tree services business. And I was like, what tree service business are you talking about to this guy? You are qualified, aren't you? Yes. And I was left thinking, how do you know this?
Oh, them are
Um,
the days, the yellow pages.
yeah, and it was such a funny conversation. And that, like many social entrepreneurs, we don't like to miss an opportunity.
Mhm.
And I thought, all right, let's run with this tree services idea. Um, that they persuaded us to sort of to take an ad with them and to go onto their register. And that was the start of where the off the grid tree services came from, which
Amazing.
now supports the business.
Mhm.
So the whole off the grid journey, it's led us down so many different avenues and so many different adventures, from fallen trees to the lakes to adventures up in Scotland, and
Mhm.
it just keeps producing the excitement for us. So
Yes.
yeah, it's been a journey.
So I wonder then, Paul, with all of those twists and turns in the journey, what is it that's kept you anchored? Because I can imagine it would almost be quite easy to be blown off course with the twists and the turns that you've experienced. What is it that's kept the root of your organization really grounded?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure if I could honestly say we're
Mhm.
grounded,
Okay.
um, because the creativity. So since 2016, the world's changed a lot.
Mhm.
We've had COVID, we've had all sorts of additional challenges, and I think the flexibility that we developed in those early years. I think the other two directors are off the grid, both work local authority with us, and the three of us, we must have gone through about 4 or 5 restructures. So
Mhm.
that change actually was a really useful experience for us, because it meant we adapted, we grew, and we all had like a really good experience of, this is coming to an end. We now need to do that. This grant funding's coming to an end. And so often in local authority, when something comes to an end, that's it. Where, as a team of people, we were like, right, this is coming to an end. What's our next adventure?
Mhm.
We had a very different take as a local authority team. We were always out there looking for new adventures. We were always looking for, if we were stimulated, if we were excited, when you're working with vulnerable people, it's easy to take them on the journey with you.
Mhm.
And because we were always bringing in new grants, we were always bringing in new money, we could always engage people better than more traditional or static teams,
Mhm.
which made us really good, but quite unpopular in some ways of what we would do, because while we were grounded with most of the stuff we do is underpinned by Prince 2 methodology, so we do use proper project methodology. We use the Evolve Risk Management System, which is the school-based system. We use a lot of monitoring and evaluation. We use good finance systems.
Mhm.
And by being good project managers, it allows us then to be creative. So when a new and exciting idea comes along, one of us will be, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's go and explore that. We all love travel and adventure.
Mhm.
Um, So an example, just this week, we've been working with the National Trust, and we've created a really exciting new project that's hopefully going to go live in the next couple of months, working from
Oh,
one of the
nice.
trust sites in Northumberland.
Oh, okay.
So that's going to be based off the back of Wellington Hall, hopefully. And there was just an opportunity there. Yesterday, we were at Customs House working with some of the art people, and they were talking about theatre and Makina and MCing and things like that, and putting that on the stage. So the projects we get involved with could be anything from um, a very simple 2-hour session in an after-school club through to transforming buildings, woodland projects, really quite big, significant capital projects. And
Mhm.
we take young people and more recently adults on that journey with us. So everyone gets excited, and it's
Yeah,
really easy to engage people using that
yeah.
style.
Interesting. So it's almost bottling that enthusiasm that you guys have already got, isn't it?
Totally.
And just
Yeah.
making that contagious that the people that you're working with are on the adventure with you.
Yes.
Um, I'm interested then as to what the golden thread is running through that. So you've mentioned the young people and the adults now that you're working with. Is it the impact that drives all of those initiatives? Is it the difference that you're wanting to make? Is it the people that you're working with? Or is it just the adventure? Is it that you want more people to engage with adventure and creativity and fun?
I think it's all of what you've just said there, really.
Okay.
Um, One of the best experiences I had last year was that I worked with a dementia group
Hmm.
across in Newcastle, and it was a link through a business mentor I'd had a few years ago, and the conversation went, Paul, I know it's not your normal group, but we've got a dementia group with the average age of around 80. And I was thinking the stuff I do isn't necessarily suitable for
Hmm.
my 80-year-old grandma.
Hmm.
But I thought, I like this idea, I like this challenge. And last year we had, I think there was 28 or 30 in the dementia group. And we had everybody engaged with something. So I had them out animal handling with the birds of prey.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
the falconry centre. I've got some great pictures of these little grannies, sort of late 80s,
Uh-huh.
with big owls on their arms and with a peregrine falcon there.
Hmm.
I've got another guy who was 94 in that group.
Hmm.
And I've got a great image with the biggest smile on his face. And he was on like an adapted cycle, and this was at the Newburn Leisure Centre.
Ah, okay.
And I had to physically run after him.
Hmm.
It was the fun. No one caught it on video because it would have been the funniest thing. But I had to chase a 94-year-old down and slow him down. I was worried about him tipping the bike over. He was going that fast.
Yeah.
And he turned around and looked at us. He was like, "What? Get off us! Why are you
Yeah.
slowing us down?" I was like, "You look at the wall."
Yeah.
And it's they did more last year than what some of the sixth form students did.
Hmm.
Same group I had up at Kielder, and up at the Kielder Centre, it was about 2 degrees, and then midway through the morning it started to snow. And again, from a risk management point of view, you
Hmm.
think you've got some vulnerable people. You're
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Kielder and it's snowing. It had been raining heavy, and there's like a zip wire that they put people on over
Uh-huh.
this river. And I was thinking, am I pushing people too far? Because you're always aware of what you do. I want to create that sense of danger, but
Hmm.
not people in danger.
Hmm.
Um, and we got the first few across on the river, and the last two were one was on a walker, and the other one was in a wheelchair
Hmm.
that had strokes, the pair of them. And I thought they were just really enjoying being out, and neither of them communicated or spoke because of the conditions. And both of them were elbowing us, telling us that they wanted to do it
Wow.
because they were feeling left out.
Hmm.
And we had to winch up the first guy in a wheelchair, clip him into his harness, winch him out of the wheelchair onto the zip wire. We zip wired him over a raging river and lowered him
Oh,
down on the
wow.
other side. And this guy's smile,
Hmm.
it, you can't picture just how important that was for him. and all of them that they just had the biggest smiles.
Hmm.
And they went back into like the main room, and it was a bit like they had care home type chairs, you know, the big soft chairs, because
Hmm.
at Keeler is a disability centre and they had comfortable chairs for them. And they went back in and they started behaving like old people the moment they walked in again.
Hmm.
And I walked back in, and I've never actually told off a group of adults before, but they went back to behaving like old people.
Yeah,
And I was like, "What are you lot doing sitting like this?" And every one of them jumped up,
yeah, yeah.
got an apology, and they were like, "Right, let's go again." Because that learnt behaviour of once you get to 30, a lot of people think they can't do things.
Hmm.
And then they make excuses on me knee, me hip, me gammy arm. You know, I've heard all sorts of stories
Hmm.
why you can't do things. But this group and their disabilities prove that you can do anything as long as you believe you can.
Hmm.
And dementia took away the fear
Hmm.
of what people in the 30s have.
Oh,
And
it's so interesting.
it was sort of, I learned so much from that.
Mm. I wonder, Paul, in terms of that impact measurement then, because as a social enterprise, I guess part of the challenge is being able to explain the impact. And I mean, you've captured my imagination there in terms of people's smiles and yeah, these amazing adventures that you're taking people on. But how do you monitor the impact of that? Have you got like a questionnaire, or because I can imagine taking a bit of paper up a mountain is going to be a bit of a challenge. So how do you do that?
It is a challenge how you sort of monitor different people's behaviours, but with a lot of the care home work, a lot of the social prescribing work that we're involved with at the moment with NHS, a lot of people have existing plans, so they have existing formal plans. So we contribute towards the formal plan because that's at a higher level,
Hmm.
particularly if there's a doctor involved or a social worker or a care worker. Being able
Hmm.
to feed that back is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
We have young people where they behave amazing when they're with us.
Hmm.
We had a member of staff at a child in need meeting earlier in the week where they were feeding back the great work that this young person does when they're with us. But in school, in a different environment, they don't behave in the same way. They
Hmm.
replicate the behaviors that are around them. So it's so important that what we write down and the way we feed back is fed back into that formal process because it makes a massive difference to people, and it's the mobility, it helps others. And obviously we're recording ourselves to try to do case studies. I have tried to do interviews,
Hmm.
um, but when you're outside, it's really quite difficult with the wind, and it gets quite rainy in the northeast for most of the
No.
winter. And I've done many interviews where it sounds like I'm just recording a storm and you hear the odd
Yeah.
word. But yeah, photographs is always a good way of doing that. And then, like I said, try as much formal feedback as we can.
I love the
Um,
idea that you're feeding the impact into established mechanisms, processes, and systems because sometimes it's impact measurement for the sake of it, whereas
yes.
that sounds like it's impact measurement that's impactful, rather than it just being, yeah, it's something that we do as a sector. So,
Yeah.
Paul, I'm aware that I've taken quite a lot of your time already, as much as I think I could talk to you all day. Um, I'm going to ask you one last question. And given your enthusiasm, your experiences so far, what would your one piece of advice be to someone that's on the journey, that's setting up their social venture? What would you advise them looking back on your years of experience now?
I think, I would probably do this again if I was to go back. Most people start with an idea,
Mhm.
um, and that idea generally comes from an identified need, and it sort of it is to run with that idea, develop that idea. How do you fund it? How do you make it work? There's two key pieces really. Is it a business? Will it generate income? Will it generate wages? Will it generate insurance costs and such like? And then will it be useful? Does it sort of fulfill something that's needed at this point in time? And most good ideas are very good business ideas, and bring both together, treat them all as individual projects. Projects have a start and a finish point, and try something, go out there, try new ideas. Don't just look at what's been done. Get out there, do something original. What I personally find is funders are looking for unusual ways of connecting with people, and people love unusual. People don't want the same old, they want something new. People love to be part of an exciting adventure. You don't have to be putting people across zip wires on raging rivers. Maybe I'm not a best example of that, but get out there, and adventure could just be a walk along the beach at Tynemouth with a vulnerable person, getting them out of the environment in which they're struggling. There's some amazing gardens, there's some amazing country parks that we've got, and there's some amazing business mentors out there that you can speak to work with. But get creative, be original, and make some stuff happen for people, because the results you get are search for smiles. It sounds a little cheesy, but when you see somebody smile and you've done a good job, it makes everything you do worthwhile, because social enterprises are hard work. Anyone that tells you otherwise isn't being honest. But to see that smile, or to see somebody go home happy, it really does sort of mean so much to you. I think I would leave that at that point there.
Amazing. Well, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. We're going to be sharing all of your links so that people can connect with you. But for now, thank you ever so much for your time.
Not a problem. Thanks for having us on the show.
Paul's passion and enthusiasm is just absolutely infectious. I can really imagine the transformation that's possible through his programs. To me, their playful and adventurous way of working is totally echoed, not just in their programs and the way that they approach the work with their beneficiaries, but how they approach their business. There aren't many people that I've come across that say that they are accidental tree surgeons, and that now this amounts to about 50% of their traded income for their business. So to me, Paul and Off the Grid Adventures is an example of an organisation who are absolutely living by the values that they set. They're encouraging other people to be daring, to be creative, and to do something different. And that's exactly what they are doing with their organisation. So I kind of think this is a bit of an opportunity for us to reflect and ask ourselves, are we living by the values that we expect our participants to? Are we encouraging our staff to do the same? Is the culture of the organisation reflective inwards as much as it is outwards? Or are the values just 3 beautiful words that we put on our website and don't necessarily think about on an ongoing basis? So I'm going to leave it there. I loved talking to Paul, and I really hope that you enjoyed our interview. So don't forget to connect with Paul and subscribe to Chats with Changemakers for more brilliant interviews. Catch you next time. Thank you for joining today's chat. If you'd like to be featured on the next series, please email hello@junctionpoint.co.uk. Speak to you soon.